This is Ajay for Tech Primers. In this session, we are going to see what is Spring Data Elasticsearch and with an example. So previously in my sessions, we would have seen the Spring Data REST and Spring Data JPA. So if you have not looked at it, you can take a look at it. So in this particular session, we are going to see the Spring Data Elasticsearch. Let's go through the start.spring.io and create the application from there. So I have just created a group and artifact with the dependencies for web and Elasticsearch. So web is going to expose our Spring Boot application via the REST endpoint, and also Elasticsearch is going to give us the Elasticsearch dependencies which we need for building a Spring Data Elasticsearch module. So if you are not aware about Elasticsearch, so Elasticsearch is a search engine which is built out of Lucene. So it stores the data in the form of JSON messages, JSON format. So if you can easily query and search for the data using the HTTP calls. So Spring Data is going to have a wrapper around this Elasticsearch, and then it makes our life simple in terms of querying and loading the data from Elasticsearch. So that's what we are going to see now. So if you click on the generate project, it generates the project. I already generated the project. So let's go through and start. So this is the just a dummy project which Spring creates. So it doesn't add anything else apart from the dependencies. So it adds uh, the Elasticsearch and the web which we have added. So let's go and create our packages which we need. So for these we need to have loaders. So what we are going to do is we are going to load the data into the Elasticsearch first, right? So we need to create some loaders. So let's say I name the class as loaders. Or also we need some config file. uh, it's not a config file, it's a config java file. So I'll show you what it is. So let's name it elastic configuration. So these are some configurations which we need uh, while loading the Elasticsearch. Also we need the repositories. So repositories are similar to the JPA repositories, but here we will create a Elasticsearch repository. And also finally we need a resource for exposing our REST endpoint. So let's create that resource now. Let's name it as search resource. Okay, so for the search resource, I'm going to annotate it with REST controller. So this will become like a REST endpoint. Also, I'm going to give the request mapping as REST as slash search, and then we will have other methods. So let's come to that later. So first, let's go through the configuration. So for Elasticsearch configuration, so first let's annotate with configuration, and then we have to annotate it with enable elastic repositories. So once you say enable elastic repositories, you have to add the base packages. So what is the base package for us? So if you see here, the base package for us would be this repository path. So we need to give the package structure for the repository, so that when the Spring Boot comes up, it automatically scans that repository and identifies that it's an Elasticsearch repository. So let's do techprimers.elastic.repository. Okay, so this is going to scan through the files under the repository folder and create a repository for the Elasticsearch. So once that is done, so what we need to do is we need a bean for node builder. So node builder is something which Elasticsearch provides, which Spring Data provides. So we are going to say we are just going to create that node builder bean. Why is it going in error? I didn't give the open close and close place. Okay, so now the next one would be the Elastic search operations. So let's name it Elastic search operations. So what we are going to do here is we are going to create a temporary file. Okay, so file dot create temporary file. So let's create temp file. So I'm going to give the temp location, let's say temp slash elastic. Okay, and also I'm going to give some date so that our folder structure has a unique name. So I need a nano time. system.nano time. So what I have done here is I've created a temp file. Why is it showing like that? Okay, it should show surround with try catch. So after this, let me pull this out. Okay. After this, I'm going to create a setting. So I already have this setting, so I don't have to retype. So if you let me pick that quickly and paste it. Okay, so these are the settings which are required for Elasticsearch to kickstart. So let's rename this to tmpdirs. Okay. Okay, so what happens here is we are going to create a Elasticsearch default configuration. So these used to be in the XML previously. So with the Spring Boot, we have now moved to the Java way of defining things, right? So for example, here I'm saying that HTTP is enabled. How many shards do I have? Temporarily, I have put one shard, and then I have mentioned what is the path for the directory where Elastic should be saved. So the Elasticsearch is going to be saved in the local repository, so it's not going to have any in-memory database or something. It's going to store everything inside the file store. So that is the path which we have created here, the temp elastic. So that is what we are doing here. Same way we are going to create something called Elasticsearch template. So that's Spring Data. So this is specific to Spring Data. If you see, this Elasticsearch template is what Spring Data will do. So for example, see here, Elasticsearch template is under Spring Framework. So Spring Framework is going to use that. So the settings and the node builders are coming from the Elasticsearch in itself, which Elasticsearch exposes as a jar. So now I think we can go to the repository and create a repository. So let's say I'm going to create a users repository. Okay, so it's an interface. So it's going to extend something called Elastic repository. So Elasticsearch repository. So we are going to add the entity called users, and then let's say the prime, the unique value is is long. So this model needs to be created. So let's create this model. So I'm going to create a model for this. So when you create a model, we have to annotate it with document. So this is specific to the Elasticsearch. If you see here, the document model is specific to Elasticsearch. So inside the document model, we have to give all the index names. So for example, here let's say we want the index name as users, and we need to mention the type. So type also can be users, and also we can mention the shards. So shards, we have mentioned there is only one shard in initially when we did it in the configuration. If you see here, the shard is now something like a shared partition which is there in the Elasticsearch. So I am giving only one for now because we don't have huge data, and then we are going to mention all the fields which we name. So let's say I'm going to give private long id, private string, team name. So I have the name, team name, and also I'll mention the salary. Okay, now I'll generate the codes required. So let's create a dummy constructor for the JPA, and then let's create a constructor with all these fields, and also we need the getters and setters. So let's generate them as well. So we need to create the getters and setters. Okay, it's all done. So now let's go to the loaders. So loaders, let's annotate it with components so that it's injected. So inside the loaders, I'm having a post construct. So this post construct will be executed whenever this particular This post construct method will be executed whenever this loaders is completed. Okay, so what we are going to do here is, so we are going to inject the repository which we created, the users repository, which is plugged into the Elasticsearch, and also we are going to insert a new object which is called Elasticsearch operations. So this is where we are going to put all the mapping. So before we even process the data into the Elasticsearch, we need to create a mapping. So that is what we are going to do here. So if you see here under operations, we are going to say that okay, we are going to add mappings for users.class. So users.class is our model, right? So that particular model is needs to be created, right? The mapping for that needs to be created. So that is what this particular line does. So the operations.put mapping creates a mapping for these users. Now we are going to so let's say I add a log. So I have a log which is saying loading data. So now let's say I'm going to use the repository to load the data. Okay, so in order to load the data we need some data. Let's give some temporary data here. So before that, just say loading completed. So let's create this method. So we need to give the list of users so that they can be loaded. Okay, so I'll create a temporary list of users data. So let's say list of users equal to new array list user. I think what we can do is users dot add of new users. We need to now give the name. So let's say Ajay. I'm giving Ajay. So 1 2 3 long, and I'm saying that my team name is accounting, and also I say that my salary is 12,000. So that is also long. Okay, so now let's say I create some 3 more data with my friend's name. So I say finance department and the salary is 22. Okay, let it be this way. So now we need to return the list of users. So this is now returned, and we are going to say this. So what this loaders is going to do is it's going to create a mapping for the users, and once the mapping is created, it's going to load the data into the repository. So the repository is nothing but the Elasticsearch. So this is going to load the data into the Elasticsearch. Okay, now that we have loaded, and this will be happening when the Spring Boot application starts, because we have annotated this particular class with components. So this class will be created, the instance of this class will be created when the application boots up, and also we have added a post construct. So as a part of this post construct, so when this particular class is getting loaded, the final stage would be that loading of this particular method. We can also add a transactional annotation so that this particular uh, method is transactional. So if something fails, it can roll back. So that is just the transactional annotation. Okay, now let's go and add the resources. So now we need to find the data, right? So now using the REST endpoint, we are going to hit the REST endpoint, and this is going to find the data from the Elasticsearch. So it is literally going to search the data. So how do we search? So we can now inject the repository which we had created, via which we loaded the data, right? So using the same repository we can get the data. So now what do we need? So we need to write a REST endpoint. So I say I need a name, right? So let's say I'm going to search by name. So initially let's say I'm going to search by name. I'm going to give this. So I will be getting a list of users for that particular name. Can be list, right? Can be users as well, but let's do list. Okay, so I'm going to say search name. So path variable final string text. Okay, so now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the repository to do a find by name. So if you are aware about the Spring JPAs, this is how the repositories work. So you can search by a particular field. So this gets translated into literally like a query saying select asterisk from a particular table where name equal to so and so. So that is what this gets translated into. Same way, Spring is following the same type inside the Elasticsearch, Spring Data Elasticsearch as well. So this particular method doesn't exist, but we can create that inside the interface which we have done. So what happens is, on the fly, this gets converted into a query which Elasticsearch can understand and search by the field called name under the user's entity or the user's model. So that is what happens. Okay, now in this, using this particular REST endpoint, we are going to search by the name. So let's add a few more. Let's say we want to search by salary, right? So I just say I have a different endpoint. I say I want to search by salary, and also the salary is long, right? So I say find by salary, and then I pass the salary. So now I need to create the method same way. It's done. Okay, now let's go to the next one. We need again one more with something called all. So let's say let's return all the data, right? We need to rename this to salary. Okay, so let's search all the data. So what we are going to do, we don't have any arguments here, so we're going to search all the data. So there is a method called find all. Okay, that's going to return everything for us, but that's a iterable. So what we are going to do is we are going to introduce a local variable users. So what we are going to do is we are going to iterate this particular iterable. You can do a for each, and then you say users. We are going to use lambdas here. So let's say I create a list here of users. Okay, I'm going to create a array list of users list. Let me name it users list. Okay, to that users list I'm going to add the users here. Okay, and then finally I'm going to return the users list. So this can be converted into a lambda expression. So this is the method reference. So whatever argument I get, I directly add into the list here, so I can convert it like this in Java 8. So this is the method references. So I'm using that. Here we are using the variable references, in fact. So this is a variable, right? So you are using variable references directly. So this is going to return all the search results. So I think that is it. So we have a REST controller. So this is going to expose the REST endpoints for us to search, and we are loading the data using the loaders, which is what we are doing here. We are just loading temporary data. We have the Elasticsearch configuration which the Elasticsearch requires for bootstrapping the application. So when it comes up, also we have the model which is going to use which we are going to use like a view, and that's it. So let's start the application. So I go to the Elasticsearch demo, and then I say run. So this is going to start the application. Okay, meanwhile let's go to the Postman REST client. So I have Postman here. So the endpoint would be http localhost colon 8080 rest slash lurch. So that is how it will come. So right now it will not return anything. Yeah, it's going to give 404 not found. So yeah, there is an error. What is the error? So there is an error in the loaders request single bean, but there were two found. Okay, so what is the problem here? Okay, so Spring Data, I think we have to change that to template. So this should be I think this is going to be elastic template. Okay, let's start this. The loaders, okay, auto wearing of this, okay, operations, this shouldn't create any problem. Let's see. Okay, there is a problem, no directory exception, unable to initialize the model, so it's not able to create a directory. So let's see why is it that. I think this I missed something here. Let me replace the whole thing which is there here. Mhm. Okay. So I have just replaced the whole bunch here because that's what was working previously when I tried, but unfortunately right now it's not working, but it's fine. So it's just the predefined settings which we give. That's it when we load the Elasticsearch. So these are just the settings for the Elasticsearch to Bootstrap. Okay, if you see here, there is some exception, but that is coming because Elasticsearch is using some jar which is not there coming as a part of Spring Boot. So that is why that is coming. So this is again failed. Why is that? Unregistered. The logging, the port may be failed to start. The port may be already in use. Okay, so maybe the port is already in use. So let's change the port number. Where is it? We can actually stop the application which I had already started. Mhm. Where is that? Where is that? Okay, it's all here. Let me stop this so that we can access it from here. So let me rerun. So the application which was running was the one which I had previously tested it with, but yeah, I've just stopped it for now so that we can use our application whatever we created right now. This should come up. Yeah, it has come up. So if you see here, it has started with the 8080 port. So let's go to the hostman and hit the rest endpoint. So the rest endpoint which we had was, let's say, all, right? So this is going to return all the data. So if you do a rest slash all, so if you see here, these are the data which we loaded into Elasticsearch. So that is what we are getting now. So let's say if I want to search by a name, I'm going to say name slash, let's say, Ajay. It's going to return that particular name. And same way, if I search by a particular person, you are going to give. Same way, if I put a particular salary, so let's say I'm going to put 12,000, so it's going to return the data as well. So this is how Elasticsearch Spring Data searches into the Elasticsearch using the repositories which Spring Data provides. So these are created by Spring Data. So whatever we have here, the Elasticsearch repository, this is created by Spring Data, so which is making our life simpler, right? So you just say search by the find by the name and it's going to search in the Elasticsearch. So but this doesn't solve the problem of searching across names. So that I think we will cover in the next session. That's it for this particular video, but if you want to see how to build a custom query which can search across entities, so right now if you see we have loaded only one entity or only one index. So in the next session I will show you to load how to load into two different indexes or three different indexes and then search across these indexes using a custom query builder. So I'll show that in the next video. Until then, thank you guys.